Well, here's a treat on my LinkedIn channel for the bank holiday weekend. I'm joined by the Sunday Times, the Sun, the Spectator columnist, the very personable and northern Mr. Rod Liddle. Hello, Rod.
Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Very well. Well, good to see you. Your signal's not quite as good as mine, but have you done a lot of these Zoom calls over the last couple of weeks?
Two. I've avoided them as much as I've avoided other people. This is a special event for me.
Well,
you've managed to get me to do it, frankly. Because I have to say, Graham, that I know that for many of your viewers, this will have been a great hardship, this lockdown. And I don't underestimate the misery it's caused. But for me, it's been absolutely idyllic. It couldn't have been better. I am forbidden from going to London by the police. I fervently hope that that stipulation remains intact once this virus is over. I don't have to make up fatuous excuses for not meeting people. I just can not meet them. I can stay at home with my majestic wine deliveries, my cigarettes from the local store, and with my 14-year-old daughter captive, and who I am addressing the various defects in her education on a daily basis, explaining to her how colonialism was nothing to do with the impoverishment of Africa and why she should revere Sir Cecil Rhodes, things like that.
Well, yes, it's an easy way to de-woke your kids. Unwoke them.
It's absolutely, it's perfect. We have her captive. We've got about, I would reckon, 2 months to drive out of her head the arrant nonsense that's been shoved into it over the last 10 years in state schools. We've got to work quickly, Graham.
Tell me, though, on a more serious note, what is your take on the state of the country and how it's reacted to this? Obviously, the lockdown is important and a lot of people have embraced it, but it's also been a time of twitching curtains and nosy neighbours returning as well, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I mean, I think there's a certain element within society which kind of yearns for fascism. I do see that, and I see it. When I'm out and about, when I have to do my weekly shop, people coming nearer and all this kind of stuff, and the people. I think Northamptonshire police. I don't know why, particularly Northamptonshire, probably the most right-wing county in Britain, was overwhelmed by people ringing up and dobbing in their neighbours, say he went out twice yesterday. So there is some strange stuff going on. I think most people are able to navigate this pretty well. I see that the Conservative Party has a 93% approval rate at the moment, which is the highest it's ever had in its history. So I think people are kind of on board with it. I accept, though, that it's totally different for me sitting out here in the country than it is if you're on the 17th floor of a Walthamstow tower block. For the first time in my life, I genuinely feel sorry for Londoners.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. I mean, you and I both grew up in Middlesbrough, and I remember learning to swim in Middlesbrough's baths. Yep. And we used to go into Middlesbrough's baths, and we used to be given a coloured wristband to tell us how long we could be in the baths for. And some of me thought, well, actually, seeing these people with their parks closed and not able to walk or sunbathe, surely there could be some system to allow people in and to socially distance at the same time, even if it just means allowing people in for a certain amount of time.
I would have thought so. I think the police have also been a little overzealous. I know a story from London that a friend was walking her dog in a park in London, and 2 mounted police officers came up to her and said, "Do not under any circumstances throw the ball for the dog, as this could expose other people to the risk of coronavirus from the dog's fur." I think it's a lot easier for the police to do this than it is for them to catch criminals. And it's a lot easier for them as well to police the internet for hate crimes, which seemed to be their main occupation prior to the virus arriving. And I think they've overstepped the mark a little. That being said, we all as a society have to navigate this together. And I think the government's in the same position that we are. I mean, it doesn't know what's going on. Most people, I think the government's done pretty much okay. I think it was a bit slow off the mark in stopping flights coming in. And I think it was very slow in getting frontline staff, be they in the NHS or on a transport network, fitted out with PPE gear. I think those are the two areas where they've maybe been remiss. But still, most European governments have been remiss in that way as well. We're all rather groping in the dark, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how you feel about the agenda slightly changing. This is Easter weekend, and at the beginning of this week, Boris Johnson went into intensive care. And I just felt, I mean, I know Boris Johnson, like Boris Johnson, but I also talk to a lot of people my age in business who, whether they like Boris Johnson or not, it really hit home to them that, you can be middle-aged and successful and still have a serious outcome from this. And I think that was the moment that a lot of people just started to take it more seriously.
I think, assuming that Boris recovers, which we all desperately hope he does, that it may have been quite useful, much along the lines that you're talking about. I've had arguments with my wife over the virus. I take the virus far more seriously than she does. Maybe that's because I'm 60 now and she's only 38. But I think you can say to all those people, and there are many, particularly on the right, who have been inclined to poo-poo the virus, to say that the cure is worse than the disease itself and so on. It's not often a prime minister goes into intensive care, I don't remember that ever happening before, from some illness which has broken out. And I think that does resonate with people, and it does drive home the point that this has a seriousness about it. On the other issue of rich and successful, it was, of course, the rich and successful who brought it to Great Britain. It was people who have cottages in northeast Italy, who go skiing in northeast Italy, who travel all around the world. I think we've got to make sure that it's not the poor who really suffer as a consequence. That's my old blue Labour lefty socialism coming out, Graham.
I get it. I mean, it's where I came from as well. And I'm just, as I said, looking at those people in the tower blocks not able to exercise, I really felt for them. Listen, the other thing about the international dimension of this is interesting, isn't it? I was talking to a young woman in her 20s, and I was saying, surely there has to be a reckoning for China. Surely there has to be a reckoning for China. I mean, all this live dogs in markets and so on. And she said, it's bizarre, she's as woke as they come. And she said, well, you can't put your culture onto other nations. You can't judge them if we eat meat here. It's just, and I thought, hang on a minute. You surely can actually use your international clout, whether it be at the UN or with bilateral relations, US and China, UK and China, to actually say, maybe it's time we have to look at standards. I was in a local supermarket and saw some broccoli from China. If China can import its food to us and it has food markets that are not hygienic, no, broccoli and meat are very different. Surely we should be able to do something about that.
I don't think there's much we got. I'm slightly with your woke friend, I have to say.
I'm surprised.
Awful thing. Yeah. I don't think there's much we can do. The Chinese eat dogs. They also eat dogs in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Mexico. Dogs are eaten pretty worldwide in certain areas. Even Switzerland, for example, they eat dogs. They don't tell you that very often. Up in the mountains, dog is considered a delicacy. Okay, we might have a word with the Chinese and say, cut the bat thing out. It's never a good idea to eat bats. We know of the incredible propensity of bats to carry disease, let the bats fly around a bit. But it's very difficult to castigate the Chinese for their culinary pleasures when, you know, as you probably know, I'm very lefty on animal rights.
Yeah.
When you look at the way that we treat our own animals, and indeed have had problems as a consequence, as you remember from BSE. It's pretty much the same thing.
I'm going to have great pleasure in telling this young woman who I know that Rod Liddle agrees with her. So there we are. Last question, because we've got to wrap up. What do you think society is going to look like post-virus? Is it going to be any change? And will some of the stuff that we're going through now last?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, of course, we journalists, that's all we've been writing about, because none of us know anything about the virus. We're all saying, what's going to happen? And by and large, if you're on the left, and I keep seeing this, if you're on the left, it's going to be a more, a kinder, gentler country. We're going to reach out to other countries. We're going to collaborate. And we're going to take more care of the poor, etc., etc. If you're on the right, and if you're a social conservative like me, then you hope that there might be a renewed appetite for the nation state, strong borders, and less of an appetite for untrammeled immigration. I also think a greater communitarianism. The one thing that may change, I think probably nothing will change. I think probably once this is all over, we will go back to the rapaciously selfish way in which we lived our lives before the virus. I do hope a certain communitarianism takes hold. I do hope we travel less, that we shop more locally, that we take fewer holidays. I've hugely enjoyed the peace, quiet, and the wildlife that's thrived in the absence of cars and planes. But again, Graham, I have my doubts. Anything will change.
Well, I'm going to leave it there. Rod, thanks very much. Looking forward to reading you in the many organs that you write for. Thank you very much.
A pleasure, Graham.